Okay, so in this lesson, we are going to do some adding and subtracting of decimals. Adding and subtracting decimals is not a particularly difficult lesson, which is the good news, and it is all about lining up the decimal. And from there, it is very similar to basic adding and basic subtracting. So let's go ahead and get started. So how to add and subtract decimals. So the first thing that you're going to do, oops, did not mean to do that, is you are going to line up the decimal points. Now you should be very much used to doing this from comparing and ordering so far. Also, you should be used to adding zeros as placeholders if necessary. So if you have any empty spots after you line them up, you add zeros as a placeholder, which I've done right here. And then step 2, you follow the directions. So you either add or you subtract. So with this problem right here, 3.45 plus 1.972, I have put them on top of each other. I added a 0 after the 5 here as a placeholder. My directions told me to add, and so I'm going to add. 0 plus 2 is 2. 5 plus 7 is 12, so I'm going to carry the 1, put the 2 down here. 9 plus 4 is 13, plus 1 is 14. And then I'm going to put the 4 down there. Now I have my decimal point here, so I'm going to bring it down. I have a 1 plus 3 is 4 plus 1 is 5. And so my final answer is 5.1422. Sorry, 5.422. I think I said a 1 in there. 5.422. All right, so let's go ahead and start to practice lining them up. Again, as long as you line them up, that is the hardest part. So 5.62 plus 4.19. We do not have any placeholders here, so we should be good to go. 2 plus 9 is 11. We're going to carry the 1 and put a 1 below the equal bar. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. And then we're going to bring down the decimal, and 5 plus 4 is 9. Guys, the name of the game here is organization. It's very easy with decimals for things to shift over one spot, for a decimal to get lost, and as long as you keep neat and organized, you should not have a problem. All right, 12.1 plus 8.57. So again, 12.1 plus, and then watch this. Here's the decimal from the last problem. Now, how do you know where to put the 8? Some people instinctively put the 8 under the 1. If you do this trick, just put the decimal point for the next number right there. What's the number right next to the decimal? An 8. So it goes perfectly where it goes. And then add your zeros where you need to. Even if it looks weird, as long as you're getting it right. 0 plus 7 is 0. 5 plus 1 is 6. Bring down your decimal point. 2 plus 8 is 10. Carry the 1. Bring down the 0. 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 0 is 2. And so your final answer is 20.67. All right, we have a subtraction problem. So we have 14.54 minus 11.23. There's my equal sign, okay? 4 minus 3 is 1. 5 minus 2 is 3. Bring down my decimal. Now you'll see as I'm setting up these problems, I leave a good bit of sufficient space right here between my numbers and my decimal. Why? Because I don't want my decimal to get lost. I want everything to be super clear. It's not a bad idea to do that yourself. 4 minus 1 is 3, and then 1 minus 1 is 0. So your final answer is 3.31. All right, here we have 5.30. Ooh, and there we go. I just broke my rule. See, my decimal point was blending into my 5. 5.35 minus 4.761. And I need a 0 as a placeholder. My large equal bar there. 0 minus 1, I can't do it. Now pay attention if you forget how to borrow. You cross out that number and the number to the side. Take away one number from this one, the 5 becomes a 4, and you add a whole 10 to this number. So 0 plus 10 is 10, okay? So then 10 minus 1 is 9. Now here I have 4 minus 6. Can't do it. Again, cross out the 4, cross out the 3. Take 1 away from the 3, it's a 2. And add a whole 10 back over here. What was 4 plus 10? 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. 2 minus 7, can't do it. Cross out the 2, cross out the 5. Take 1 away. 10 plus 2, 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. Bring down the decimal point. 4 minus 4 is 0. So your final answer is 0.589. That was a really good example of an intense borrowing problem. You need to remember how to borrow. You need to get good at borrowing because it's going to happen a lot with decimals. 9.67 minus 0.635, and I need a 0 as a placeholder. It looks like we have a borrowing situation again. 0 minus 5 can't do it. Cross it out, take 1 away from here, make it a 6. Add 10 to 0, you get 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 6 minus 3 is 3. 6 minus 6 is 0. Bring down your decimal. 9 minus 0 is 9. And so your final answer is 9.035. All right, now this is a tricky one. 11 minus 2.4. Remember with 11, where does that decimal point go? Think about it this way. If you have the number 11, would the decimal go in front or would the decimal go behind? Well, would it go in front of it or would it go behind it, so to speak? Okay, so the correct answer is the second one. Okay, so you have 11 right here and the decimal is to the right. So when you go to line up this 2, put the decimal point, put the 2, put a 0 as a placeholder, put the 4, and put a placeholder after the 11, just like that. And it's a subtraction problem. All right, 0 minus 4 can't do it. So we're going to borrow from the 1, and now he's a 0, sad little 0. But 0 plus 10 is 10. So 10 minus 4 is 6. Bring down my decimal. Now 0 minus 2 can't do it, so I got to take away from this guy. But I'm adding 10 over here. Oops, so he becomes a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 0 minus 0, 0. So your answer is 8.6. Whole numbers minus decimals become tricky. But as long as you know where that decimal point goes, you're good to go. Okay, now I'm going to throw a couple letters into decimals here, okay? So when I put a letter in, a letter is called a variable, okay? We're going to get to this later on in the year, and you don't have to remember the word variable, but I do want you to hear it. But all you have to do here is it says 6.652 plus P. Well, what's P? Well, here's P. P is 2.8. So what this really says is 6.652 plus 2.8, okay? And over here, 9.721 minus P, well, what's P? P is right here. So this really says 9.721 minus 2.8, okay? So let's go ahead and solve these. So I'm going to line these guys up. Plus 2.8, and I have a couple placeholders to add as zeros. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 0 is 5, 6 plus 8 is 14, carry the 1. Bring down my decimal point, 1 plus 6 is 7, 7 plus 2 is 9. So the answer here is 9.452. All right, over here I have a subtraction though. 9.721 minus 2.8, and just like the last one, I have a couple of placeholders to add. 1 minus 0, 1. 2 minus 0, 2. 7 minus 8, can't do it. Need to borrow. Cross them both out, okay? Take 1 away from the 9, make it an 8, and add 10 to the 7, so it's 17. 17 minus 8 is 9. Bring down the decimal. 8 minus 2 is 6. The answer here is 6.921. All right, you go ahead and try these guys on your own and we will compare answers. All right, if you're not done, go ahead and hit pause. So for number 1, that was a fun borrowing adventure. So if you got stuck, take a look at how I borrowed over here. But you should have ended up with 3.778. Number 2 was a basic addition problem, 25.839. For number 3, you would have ended up with 4.30. Now you can write 4.30. You can also write just 4.3 and take the 0 off the end. Does not matter. And then for number 4, you had that whole number there. So you had to remember to put the decimal point at the end and add a 0. And your answer was 2.3. All right, that is the end of adding and subtracting decimals. Let's keep going in the decimal unit.